You know, I like roses. They're not my favorite flower. That might be orchids, might be my favorite flower. But roses are nice too. But right now, given their association with thorns, I'm not liking them in regards to summers. Okay, so I'm a little late on this video today, kind of because it's Monday, Thursday, and then tomorrow's Good Friday, and then it's Easter on Sunday, and there are thorns in this chapter, and I had a dentist appointment this morning, and I took my grandpa to service, so, and then the chapters weren't loading correctly, so I couldn't read them, so now I was finally able to read them, and now I'm going to record. Okay, time to review. Okay, so I had a lot of debate for what thumbnail I wanted to make for this video. And there were a couple that I thought about. And I made several of them, and I'll use them in the video anyway. Starting off, we have so the chapter is Movement Amongst Stillness. And this is chapter 1146. I keep wanting to say 11,000, and I'm like, One Piece is not that long. Although technically for One Piece, if you like added in everything that's like in the SBSs, that is like stuff that's mentioned in the SBSs for like behind the scenes stuff and things like that, it might add up to, well, I don't know what it would add to at that point in time, but it add up a bit more if you added in all of the all of the stuff that's in the SBSs for that stuff. It add up at least a good couple chapters. Okay, so Movement Amongst Stillness. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this chapter, and then there's also just some stillness going on in regards to what's going on with Luffy. So first we start off with the Yamato cover page story, which continues pretty much where we left off with the last one, after like Ulti is sitting there hugging page 1 and making sure he's okay. Ulti has now jumped up and like grabbed Yamato and is like, please take me with you. I shall never forget thy favor. I shall become thy loyal subordinate. It's what Ulti is doing to Yamato. And Yamato is just kind of like, back off, Ulti, back off. Which is just adorable. Because given information that we got in the SBSs about Hanafuda and his relationship with Kaido, and the fact that Ulti and Page 1 are his children, and that Kaido was essentially like their godfather and has been their guardian for the past, year and a half, 2 years range or so. 2.5 to 3 years range, give or take, for when Ace fought Hanafuda, and then when Hanafuda died. So there's like connections there that like Ulti and Page 1 have like probably known Yamato for quite a while. Maybe, okay, no, Yamato's a bit older than both of them, because Yamato is 28 and I think Ulti is only like 22, I want to say, is how old Ulti is. 22 range is like where Ulti is, and then Page 1's like a couple of years younger than her. But like, this is just, Ulti has been through a lot in the past several weeks. She went through everything during the Battle of Onigashima, where we saw Ulti and Yamato clash on Onigashima, because Ulti was chasing after Momonosuke and Shinobu, and Yamato showed up and fought against Ulti and like fought against her for a little bit, and Ulti called Yamato a traitor. Technically correct from Ulti's perspective. And like in this picture we have like Page 1 off to the side, like, I was not expecting that reaction from my sister. And then we have Tama and Minamoto, carpenter guy off to the side are like watching this, like, okay, what's going on here? And Tama does not have a good relationship with Ulti, because Ulti attacked Tama. She attacked Tama because Tama had shown that she could control the devil fruit users, or control the smile users on Onigashima. And she's like, I don't know how you're doing this, but you're doing this, and I don't like it, so I'm going to attack you. And she tries to knock Tama out. Almost succeeds. And thankfully, they're, Nami shows up and finishes her off. Nami is there and finishes Ulti off. But Ulti has, like, Kaido lost. Yamato is Kaido's child. And now it's like, okay, and then, you know, Who's Who kind of turned on us and kidnapped, you know, Page One and I, and was gonna probably kill them, in all honesty. So I'm like, Ulti is kind of like, okay, maybe serving under Yamato is a better idea. maybe that's a better thing. Although I don't know what Ulti and Page One are gonna say when, like, Yamato explains, I'm kind of serving the Kozukis now. You know, the ones you kind of, you know, didn't like a couple of weeks ago, like a fortnight ago, that you didn't like. You know, fortnight, 2 weeks ago, whatever you want to call it, that you were trying to, you know, fight against on the giant island that my dad was flying through the sky. I'm kind of sworn to serve them now. So if you're going to swear to serve me, you're also swearing to serve them. So are you okay with that? Page One would probably be like, I am fine. I don't want to fight anymore. I am tired of fighting, is probably like Page One's answer. And then Ulti's like, you saved my Pei. I don't care. It's like probably what Ulti is going to do. Into the actual story. Okay, into the actual chapter. We pick up right where we left off with the last one, where this is right after Gunko has appeared on the bow, or on the front of Qilin's ship, where he has Usopp and Jinbei and Nami and Brook with him. And she appeared on, you know, on the front of it, the prow of the ship. And Usopp is just like, who the hell are you? Jinbei. So you are... And Nami's like, oh, what of the intruders? And Qilin's like, intruders? Qilin was not listening earlier when Nami was explaining stuff to explaining stuff to Jarl. And someone is saying, you're the ones who kidnapped the children, aren't you? And I don't know if which one is talking. This might be Qilin. And it's just like, I think Jinbei's like, so you're the intruder from the human race. And Nami's like, the ones who did that to the castle guards. And when being called human is not something that Gunko likes. Because she just, like, glares down at them and, like, adjusts her hat. And she's like, you said human race. Wrong answer. And, like, Brook is looking at her. And we're not having any realization from, like, her about who Brook is. So maybe she is, like, a big fan of Brook, but she's also like, I'm in work mode right now, and my job right now is to take you guys out, because you're kind of an obstacle right now to kidnapping the children. And there's also a child on this boat that I am going, on this little sky ship that I am going to intend to try to kidnap as well, and you guys are in my way. So as much as I'm a Soul King Brook fan, big fan by the way, kind of got to focus in on what I'm doing here right now. It'd be like if somehow you're like, I don't know, you're like the biggest Miley Cyrus was on the radio earlier. You're the biggest Miley Cyrus fan in the world. And like Miley Cyrus somehow walks into your place of work and you know it's Miley Cyrus. And you were just listening to Miley Cyrus. And now she is right in front of you and your job is to be like, I don't know, some like very, like you're one of the Buckingham Palace guards or something like that. And you're like, I cannot break character as much as I really want to and ask for an autograph. I cannot break character right now. Type of a thing. Like that whole type of thing. Or like you're someone like in a theme park and your job is to be this princess or this character, stay in that role all day. It's like, I can't break character to interact with you, but I really, really want to. And Gunko might have a bit of that going on right now, but they also just called her a human. And from past experiences with the Celestial Dragons, they don't like being called human. They take it as an insult. And that's why they took it as an insult when Homing was like, oh, I'm not a Celestial Dragon, I'm a human. There's no difference here. And then he's, you know, denounced himself and his family and they went down. And then Milzgard didn't take it quite that far where he left, but he still declared himself just a regular human and was using his power to try to help, you know, Fishman Island and stuff like that, which eventually led to his execution, unfortunately. But we're having this moment and like And Gunko continues and is like, we are gods. And Usopp is like, gods? She's talking just like Enel and the Celestial Dragons. So, Enel reference, after a long frickin' time. Haven't really talked about Enel. So we get that reference. Yeah, Enel, to be fair, Enel probably has more power in his little finger than a good chunk of the Celestial Dragons have in their whole body. Until you get to the God's Knights, which is like God's Knights and the Gorosei, which is, of course, what we're dealing with at the moment, are the God's Knights. And Nami's like, and what do gods want with kids from Elbath? And Colin's like, yeah, they're my friends. So again, Colin is being a very good kid here. It's like his, yes, they're kind of his bullies at school, and the fact that, like, he doesn't know, they want to be scholars and stuff like that, but he wants to be a warrior because he wants to be like his father, like Scopper. But it's also, but they're still his friends. It's like, yeah, if someone showed up at my school and started threatening the kids, even if I don't like the kids, I'm gonna start trying to protect them. And that's coming from the kid who was bullied most of the time at school. And then we get like this little cut to where we see the kids still going. It's just in silhouette on like the burned branch that like Jinbei just put out the fire on. And they're still walking. They're still following the arrow. And they're like, and it's, where do you think you're taking them? And I think it's Colin that's still asking. And it's like, bring them back. And we get like another close-up shot of the kids walking through like the scorched earth with like the tree, like the part of the branches, actually like kind of the twigs on the branches by comparison, like burned. Like the kids are still going, still asleep. And cut to Gunko and Ken. She's like, watch your mouth, brat. And then she's going to go into a speech. And I'll go into the speech in a second, but I'm going to go what we see in the panels behind what's going on in the speech. So first we're going to check in with what is going on with Ripley, Frankie, Lilith, and Bonnie. So they're running away from the giant cloud with Thunder Cloud with like thunder legs and arms that is chasing them. It seems to have fallen over, and the reason is because, okay, so Lilith and Bonnie are currently sitting on Ripley's shoulder. And then Ripley has Frankie in her hand still because she was like carrying him around like an action figure before, which is just hilarious. Actually, hold on. I have Lilith and Bonnie over here. So they're just like sitting on her shoulder, like size-wise to me, maybe a little smaller. And then like Frankie is in Ripley's hand, and she is essentially using him as like a pistol, which is just funny. Too far. Hit the baby. And like Ripley is essentially treating Frankie like a pistol. As she's like running, she's like turned and got him pointed at the cloud. Like, I'm assuming Frankie is just like letting off. It looks like he just used one of his radical beams. I don't remember if Frankie was able to upgrade himself enough that he's able to use more than one radical beam at a time. As in like radical beam, radical beam, radical beam, or if it's only like one radical beam and then I have to recharge for a little bit and get more cola and then I can do another radical beam. I don't remember if Frankie was able to upgrade himself from that yet. But like Bonnie and Lilith are like cheering about this, and like so Frankie's basically being used as a pew 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 gun, which is just funny. And then we cut back, and I'll go into the Lilith speech in a second, but we cut back to where Lilith is with on the prow of the ship, and we see Nami and Brooke and Jinbei, and like Usopp is here, and we see Colin. And Gunko's Gunko, sorry, I don't remember what I said before. Gunko's speech is like, watch your mouth, brat. It'd be better if we could just abduct them, but with that size, the only choice we have is to make them walk on their own and then escort them along the most appropriate route to the Holy Land. And Nami's like, Holy Land? Marijois? And I think it's Jinbei that's like, don't tell me you're a celestial dragon. And Usopp's like, ah! He's just like, you're one of those guys. Ah! He's like, wait a second. I don't you don't look like the ones we've seen. Because, of course, they're used to seeing, like, they don't know that what they fought on Egghead a couple of few days ago. They don't know. I don't think they know that those were the celestial dragons. That those were the Gorosei. I don't think that was ever explained to them. Because it's not like Sailor Saturn. I knew I was going to make that mistake at some point in time. It's not like Saint Saturn showed up and like was telling them exactly who he was. It's not like he showed up and like had like a giant banner when he turned into a spider form. He's like, "Hi, I am Saint Saturn, one of the Gorosei, in charge of science. You're a spider. Yes, I'm also a giant spider. I'm a giant Ushioni. Take your pick." Can you go back to the old man form? That seems like an easier thing to hit. Or at least I might be able to punch you farther. True. So they're used to seeing the celestial dragons that are the ones with like the bubble helmets and stuff like that. The ones who walk around that way that they interacted with at Saba Odi and that Luffy punched. And then Usopp landed on top of Roswald's head, which is just funny. So that's what's going here. Those are the celestial dragons that they are used to interacting with. In the movies, they've interacted with them a little bit in regards to like they're in film gold and like, you know, Usopp and the others kind of have to like dress up as like the celestial dragons when they're trying to sneak through the hotel and everything, get to the safe and everything, get to the gold stores and everything else like that. And then like they technically, like Charlos is in film red and like Uta turns him into, I don't remember what she turns him into, like an ice cream cone or something, but like so we see that, but like they have not interacted with that many other celestial dragons. Luffy technically has something tied to Saint what was his name, Gelmac, when he came to came to Goa, when he was a kid and shot Sabo, blew up Sabo's boat, and all of that. But like they didn't, like Luffy didn't interact with Saint Gelmac, and these guys have not really interacted with this section of the god of the celestial dragons before, which Brook is kind of going to bring up in a second. He's like, I think she's an even higher up than that, maybe part of the God's Knights. And we get like this question mark off to the side of like, what do you mean God's Knights? Okay, I just want to make sure. Because when Gunko and Shamrock first showed up in Elbath and they were interacting with the guards at the castle, they didn't mention anything about being God's Knights. And then we know that Loki explained to Luffy's group with Hyrule, who we'll see later on in this, that like Loki explained that they were the God's Knights because they like introduced themselves to Loki because he was the person they were there to talk to. But that information has not gotten back to the other Straw Hats yet because they have not communicated that information back to them that these guys are the God's Knights. So there's that. When the heck else would Brook have heard about the God's Knights? Did him and the Rumbar Pirate, did he know about the God's Knights more than 50 years ago before the Rumbar Pirates all died? Did he know about them before then? Has Brook known about the God's Knights and he just never brought them up because he didn't think they would ever have to interact with them, which is fair. Just very fair. It's like, he's like, yeah, I heard like these rumors of these really strong celestial dragons that like protect other celestial dragons and like that type of thing. Like, is that the way Brook knows about them? Because I can't think of another reason for when Brook would have heard about the God's Knights. Because we know Dragon and the Revolutionaries know about the God's Knights. Because like Dragon's the one who like initially mentioned them, type of a thing. That they are this force to be reckoned with, which they have proven to be. Thus far, and that's going to get more evidence is going to get added to that a little bit throughout this chapter. But how does Brook know about the God's Knights? Did he interact with the God's Knights at some point in time? I highly doubt it. He wouldn't have interacted with the God's Knights at all in the last 2 years. Because in all honesty, if somehow Brook had been taken to Marijois to perform at Marijois, I don't think they would have let him leave. Because they would have been like, no, we wish to keep the skeleton here. And the long-armed tribesmen that were like his agents were like, well, that would be perfectly fine if you're willing to pay. No, we don't have to pay anything, and you're now our slaves as well. Oh, frick, we screwed up. Yeah, you did. Would have been like, what happened there? But how the heck else would Brooke know about the God's Knights? I can't think of another reason why Brooke would know about the God's Knights. I might just be completely missing it, and there might be a very valid reason that, like, he heard what they were called already. But, and then Gunko is just like, indeed, and we see her starting to unwind her sleeve into one of the arrows, and it's starting to, like, go after Usopp. And Usopp is just like, you want the little runts to turn them into slaves? And then, like, the arrow is, like, chasing after him, and it's just like, what the heck is this arrow? And it's just like, it's like a bee that starts trying to follow you, and it's just like, please stop. I did not do anything to you. Please leave me alone. That's my answer when it comes to wasps. Just no. Just no. I kind of, okay. I know that I don't think they'll do this, but something that would be a funny thing to do is, once they get to this in the anime, is like someone take clips from the anime of like the arrows going around and put it to Flight of the Bumblebees. Flight of the Bumblebee, that classic one there. That would be like a fun little thing to do there. Just like the animation of Gunko's arrows chasing after people and then like whacking people. A type of thing. So Nami is not going to try to score off against Gunko. Good on you, Nami. Because, of course, Nami is, of course, very protective of children. That's what's going on here. Usopp is protective of children as well, but Nami's the one who's doing this now. And she's like, I won't let this happen, Zeus. And Zeus pops out of the climb attack, and, like, she's activating it. And he's like, hey, Nami, you called? And he starts jumping out of the climb attack. And then Usopp is being chased around by the arrow. And it's just like, hey, this arrow's following me. Get away from me. Just like, chase. Which is, again, funny, but also dangerous. So not good. So Nami's going to show us a new technique that she's developed that is called Thunder Shark Tempo, which is where Zeus shifts his, shape because he's a cloud. He can turn into whatever the heck shape he wants. He shifts into the shape of a shark, and he's turned into like the storm cloud form that he has. And Nami is now like, he's all charged up with electricity and everything, and she's firing him at Gunko. And Gunko's just watching this. And then the Thunder Shark. That does not sound like a good combination of things. I already don't particularly care for storms and thunder and lightning when they get really, really bad. Which it's kind of supposed to rain later today, so we'll see what happens with that. And then let's add sharks into that. Not a Sharknado, because that's a ridiculous concept. If Sharknadoes were real, the world is far beyond any help we can provide. Type of thing. But, so, the shark, Zeus, is like fired at Gunko, and Gunko then activates an arrow as soon as the shark gets close enough, as soon as Shark Zeus gets close enough, and like flips him 180 and sending right back at Nami, because now he's hooked onto the path of the arrow. And he's like, what the? And Gunko continues with her speech, and she's like, one day the world was simply going to disappear. Or at least that's what was supposed to happen. And, Zeus Shark is now chasing Nami. And, of course, we've seen similar things happen to this before, which I love. Zeus Shark Zeus, whatever, is, like, chasing Nami, and Nami's running away. And he's yelling at her to run because he can't control what's going on with his body right now. And we see the shark hit and electrocute what is supposedly Nami. And Zeus is like crying because he's like, he didn't want to hurt Nami because he loves Nami because she's his master. And Gunko is just kind of like ... type of a thing, waiting. And then it cuts to the next panel, and we see Nami and Brooke both holding up thumbs up. And Brooke is like, it hit me! And Zeus is like, wait, it hit you? Thanks! Because Brooke, of course, is completely immune to electric attacks. He still gets kind of like charred and stuff like that, but he doesn't really experience like the pain that goes along with it, really, because it doesn't do a lot of damage, because like electricity is conducted by water, and Brooke doesn't really have any water in him. And so he's not really affected by the electricity very much. So it's maybe just like slightly singed him, but he's fine. We've seen this happen before. We saw this happen. This is a reference to what happened at Whole Cake Island. When Big Mom is chasing after the Sunny at one point in time, and she releases one of her electric attacks, like she's a Pokemon, one of her electric moves, one of her thunderbolts, I think, and you think it hits, it's like you think that it hits Nami again. I think it's Nami again that you think that it hits, but then it's like it's revealed that it's actually Brook that got hit by it, because like Brook does not, he's like a lightning rod. He can be affected by it, but it's not going to cause him a lot of damage. So I love that callback here. So Brook's like, yep, jumped right in there and protected you, Nami. Thanks. And then even Zeus is like, thank you, because he doesn't want to hurt Nami, and he didn't realize Brook did that. So Gunko's like, okay, whatever. Just weird. And then we're getting, Gunko is continuing her speech. She's like, however, a portion of the humans realized this and made it known to the world. And this is where we see Clover and Olvia and Vegapunk, because this is the references to the fact that, like, with, you know, Clover and Olvia being able to, like, read the poneglyphs and gathering up that information, and then, you know, Vegapunk also finding that research with when he, you know, got to read all of the books that were in the library at Ohara, that were now on Elbath. You know, this is like part of what's going on there, where it's just like, okay, well, that's not good. What are we going to do now? Type of a thing. And it's, you know, so he's the one who made that, you know, announcement to the world that, you know, the sea levels are going to keep rising, and then eventually that will just kill everything. And by technicality, that will also kill all of the celestial dragons as well. Not like because the waters are going to flood all the way up to the top of Marijwa in the Red Line, but because they will run out of food. Because they can't grow food at Marijwa. We see all those forests at Marijwa. All of those are artificial forests. They're not natural. And unless they intend to try to do something with, like, making people who have devil fruits continuously reincarnate the same devil fruit again and again and again, to, like, have, okay, there is technically a way around this, a bit of a way around this. There is the cook fruit that Streusen has in the Charlotte family, that he has. It allows him to, like, cut inanimate objects and, like, change them into food. It's not very nutritious food, or it's nutritious, but it doesn't really taste good. So there's that. And then you also have, you know, I'm sure there's other devil fruits that involve food to varying degrees, to being able to, like, create food or turn something into food or something along those lines. And then you also have Aramaki, who of course has the Mori Mori no Mi that allows him to create forests, which would include also being able to create various types of, like, flowering plants and trees and stuff like that that would be able to turn into, like, fruit and vegetables and things like that, so they could just continuously farm stuff that way. But, like, eventually you're gonna run out of food, because if you don't have anything else to eat, because all of the other farmland that was on all of the other islands are gone. I mean, like, okay, yeah, maybe you'll still have, you know, like, fish, but the celestial dragons are too spoiled, and they're gonna get in, you know, sad with not being able to have all of this other stuff that they've come to enjoy. So it's just like, the world was supposed to disappear, and then those people, and then it was those meddling kids, those meddling archaeologists and scientists that told the world about it. And now Usopp is stepping up, and he's got his Kabuto ready, and he fires off one of his, you know, green stars at her, one of her pop greens at her, one of his pop greens at Gunko, and it just headed right at her, and she doesn't block it. I don't know if it's, like, goes too fast for her to try to stop it, or she's too distracted by something, but he hits her with his skull bomb grass, which is like the giant skull that pops up out of the grass when it blows up. And he's like, take that! Don't think we're scared of Celestial Dragon, you bastard! To be fair, most of the Celestial Dragons they've run into, Usopp could have taken all of them down very easily. Even pre-time skip, Usopp would have been able to take down Charlos and Roswald and Shalria and pretty much any of the other just base Celestial Dragons. Usopp would have been able to take them down so easily. Gunko is not a base Celestial Dragon, though, and we know this. And they're about to find this out. So they cut back. We look back, and they're like, We just see like her torso down. Like everything else is gone. Her, everything above her like torso is just gone. And he's just like, Usopp's like, ooh, or one of the others, like, was that really necessary, Usopp? And Usopp's like, everybody's gone, I'm so sorry. He was like not intending to cause that much damage. His intention was just to like knock her out. Which is generally what happens when he uses the skull bomb grass. It's good to use on like large crowds. He uses it in Fishman Island. We see him use it. I don't remember if he uses it in Dressrosa at all, but I know he uses it at Fishman Island. And I think he uses it in, I know he uses it in Onigashima, I think at some point in time during one of the various times he's running around. I think he uses it on one of the groups of beast pirates. But Gunko is, of course, reforming because she has a connection enough to Im that she is able to regenerate. Now, whether or not that is a permanent feature from being a God's Knight, like it seems to be for the Gorosei, or if it's more of a case-by-case basis when you go off on a mission, Im will form this bond with you to make it that you can regenerate. And so she's starting to regenerate the same way that we saw Saturn and the other, Gorosei regenerate when they were on Egghead during the battles, which we'll be getting to a little while in the anime. By the way, I love the new anime opening and endings. I love them centered around Bonnie and Kuma. I love that. That's just so good. Just perfect. So all of them that are on the deck are like, oh my god, it's like she's starting to regenerate. And it's just like, Nami's like, I felt bad for her, but she's regenerating. This is freaky. And Brooke's like, that's right. Going back to life is something bizarre. It's like, yes, not the time for a skull joke, but yes, coming back to life is bizarre for anyone who's not you. Yes, Brooke. And so like Gunko is like reforming, and she's like, now that it's come to this, and they're all doing like the eyes bulging out of their sockets, looking at her like, ah! Like the Anel face of ah! Type of thing, which is just funny. She's like, there's no stopping it anymore. And she's like, no one can stop it now. And we see one of the arrows pop out, and she's ready to like slide down the arrow to get to Usopp. And Usopp, because the arrow is going right at him, she's like, ah, arrow again. And he's like, that thing goes straight for the target, doesn't it? And Jinbei is like squaring up, and he's like, leave it to me, Usopp. And Nami actually grabs the arrow and is like trying to pull it away from Usopp, which is like good on Nami. She's like trying to pull the arrow away from Usopp, but it's not working. And Brooke continues, is like, knowing exactly where the blow will land, it's a bit, it's the principle of absurdity. It's like, yeah, if we know that this is going to land here, step to the side, or just out of the way of it type of a thing. It's like a countdown is what he says. And we kind of cut back and we see where, so we're going to be cutting around a little bit more now. And we're going to cut away from these guys for a second. And we're going to cut over to where the Great Eric is being attacked by all of the nightmare creatures and everything. A bunch of the Draugr. There's like the dragon that's probably Nihog. There's like one of the other ghosts wearing a top hat type of thing. There's another like bird that might be like a cockatrice or something trying to attack the ship. And we see, Dory and Bragi are there just like slicing through these things. Scopper's probably around here somewhere. I don't think I see him in the picture, but he's around there somewhere, I'm sure of it. They're just slicing through these things. Not like they're butter, because they're getting kind of hurt too. We see some, stripes and stuff like that on them as well. But they're causing a lot of damage to the nightmare monsters. And Gunko's monologue continues over this. An enormous battle that will engulf the world is about to begin. And she continues, and this is like a big double page spread that we're seeing. She's like, when that time comes, whoever the giants choose to side with will drastically change the course of history. And she's not wrong. That's probably one of the things that happened during the Void Century, is like maybe the giants did side with Joy Boy and fought alongside him, which is why they're not part of the world government now. Or maybe the giants fought alongside, started out fighting alongside Joy Boy, and then they switched and fought alongside the 20 Kingdoms, and then they realized their mistake, kind of like with Lily, and then they you know, after what happened, they're like, okay, well, we can't align ourselves with the celestial dragons, with the world government. We can't do that. And like some of the giants who like were scattered or something like that in other areas of the world, like where Saul's from and where some of the other giants are from, where like Hybridine's mother would have been from, those different areas. I know there's a theory that like maybe Saul and Hybridine are like uncle and nephew or something like that. That maybe like Saul's sister is like Hybridine's mother is like one of the. I know there's a theory out there about that. And we're now going to check in on the live Luffy cam, live Luffy feed cam. And, yep, Luffy is currently eating, or at least he's no longer stuffing his face because he is now so big from chowing down on everything on the dinosaur. And so is Loki. And they're both just the big brown fat balls right now. And Hybridine is just kind of standing off to the side in this panel. Like, how did I get into this mess? Like, we see Gerd too. Like, they're both like just so stuffed. Both Luffy and Loki are so stuffed. Again, showing this parallel in their personalities, in their characters, you know, between the two of them, which is kind of fun. So they just like gorge themselves on the dinosaur. It's like live Luffy feed, and everything else is going on around him, and he's eating. This does not surprise anybody. In Luffy and Hybridine and Loki's and such and their group's defense, they don't know what's going on up top right now. They don't know that the children are being kidnapped, that these nightmare monsters are showing up and causing all these problems, that, you know, they don't know that the school's being attacked. They don't know that that's going on right now. Because if they did know that was going on, they would be like, okay, he's fed, right? Gerd, he's wrapped up in everything. Yeah, okay. You stay here. The rest of us are going to go fight and deal with that. You just take care of Loki for a little while. We'll come back. Because, like, they don't know what's going on the Sun Realm and stuff right now. And we cut back to, like, most of this chapter literally is just, like, we see, like, snippets here and there of the other areas of what's going on. But it's, like, we're not hearing what the characters are saying for the most part because Gunko is talking over them because she's, like, monologuing. They got you monologuing. For anybody who's a Incredibles fan with Syndrome. You got me monologuing. To be fair, Gunko is monologuing, is also fighting at the same time. So she's like kind of not quite falling into that trope, which I like. So Nami is just like, a war involving the whole world? Yeah, right. Like, that's ever going to happen. Nami, I have 2 examples from my world at the very least, if not more. For wars that kind of involved the entire effing world to a degree. And the way things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up in another one. Really don't want to live through World War III. I really don't want to live during World War III. And Jinbei's like, so that's why you want Elbath under your control. And you're using the children as hostages. That's disgusting. Technically, yes, that's their intention. It's like they're gonna force the giants to work with them by having taking their children, type of thing. And Gunko, who's still running at them to attack, is like, I do this out of duty alone, but in the end, it may be pointless. The lives of those children are nothing but trash to me. The concept of a hostage means nothing. And someone's saying, you got a screw loose or what, lady? You bastard. I think it's Colin saying, because we got to see Colin and he's got like his sword in his hand and he's getting ready to attack her. So I know that there's a lot of people that are like kind of wanting Gunko to like be like the pretty girl in the arc that's like starts out as an enemy and becomes an ally type of a thing that we see throughout One Piece at various points, a lot in the post time skip type of a thing. Where, they start off as an enemy and then they end up becoming an ally and everything else like that. Nami is kind of like the initial version of this, with like her starting off as an antagonist and like pretending to be part of the crew, and then everything else happens in East Blue, and then Arlong and everything else like that. Well, you also have different things like this with like Vivi originally being Miss Wednesday, and then Robin as Miss All Sunday. By the way, my nephew is currently in Alabasta right now, in watching through the anime. He's currently in Alabasta, And the last I spoke with him yesterday, he was at the point where Robin has pulled Luffy out of the sand after he gets defeated by Crocodile. Because I'm like, he's like, well, Luffy got beat by Crocodile. And I'm like, which time? And he's like, the first time? It's like, yeah, that'll happen again. Okay. So that type of a thing. This is the same nephew who got to meet both John Gramillion and John Swazi at the con. So he got to meet Crocodile's voice actor and Mihawk's voice actor. So the same nephew. He's my only nephew. Well, technically he's my only nephew. He's my only legal nephew. Let's put it that way. I have like pseudo nephews for just people I'm around a lot. But that's too much about me. Sorry. And so, you know, there's lots of this trope of like the pretty girl that becomes an ally type of thing, who starts off as an antagonist and then becomes an ally. And a lot of people are thinking Gunko is going to be that way. That she's putting on this act here right now, that she's like, I have to act this way. Like if she really is like a member of the Revolutionary Army that's undercover, that she has to act this way in order to make sure that the other Celestial Dragons, that the other Gods Knights, that the Gorosei, that Imu, should she know about Imu, trust her. So she can still get information, and so that way she can be this mole on the inside, and then like when the Revolutionary Army finally do attack Marijois, you have Gunko there who's able to, you know, turn on the other Gods Knights and explain to, you know, Dragon, explain to Dragon and the others what their weaknesses are. So that's kind of like one of the thoughts that people have going on right now about Gunko, that she has to keep this act up in order to keep her position safe, so she can then, you know, help the revolution when it's time, help the Revolutionary Army when it gets to that point. I don't know where I land on Gunko yet. I like her a bit more than I like Summers and Killingham, simply just because she seems to show more human traits. But she also is referring to the children here as like the fact, like the concept of hostages means nothing, because the concept of a hostage is that obviously you technically don't want to kill the hostage, because then that means that you no longer have leverage over the person that you have the hostage against. That's like what happens a lot in like standoffs and stuff like that. It's like the crazy people will unfortunately still kill the hostages because they're crazy, but you know, generally the point of hostages is to use as leverage. And if you kill the hostages, you kind of lose a lot of your leverage. But of course, if they manage to get the kids and get them fully into their, you know, into their grasps, they can then use that to try to force the other, you know, force the giants to then work for them. It's just like, oh, if you want to see your kids again, then you're going to have to follow our plan. You're going to have to do what we want you to do, type of thing. So, tangent, sorry. Colin is, you know, he's getting ready to stand up to her, and her arrows come out. One of her arrows comes out and like loops around him, like wraps around him, like tightens around him. So it's kind of choking him and everything. So he drops his sword, and Nami's trying to, you know, get to him to save him. And like both Brooke and Jinbei start, you know, getting ready to fight. They're, you know, getting into position to fight. And Jinbei is going to use one of his, like, just the 5,000 tile strike brick fist type of a thing. And then Brooks, gavotte, I think it's French. Yeah, it's French. It's a classical French dance. It's like revolutionary dance. So revolutionary gavotte type of a thing is what it's, you know, it's what it's supposed to be. So he's getting ready to that, they're both getting ready to like attack Gunko, and then Gunko uses her arrows to basically make them go and attack each other, because she can mess with them that way. Aro, A-R-O-E, Aro, and like makes them punch each other, which of course they don't want to do. So there's probably going to be some apologizing coming that way. And then the arrow is going right at Nami, and Gunko then kicks Nami, sends her flying. And someone screams, Nami! I don't know who it was. Might have been Usopp. I think it's Usopp because next we so the translation for what Gunko's attack was either at, I think it was the attack at Jinbei and Brook, is called Arrow Link or Faded Arrow. So it's like, again, it's like the makes you, punch your ally type of a thing. Friendly fire. So Usopp's got another one of his, pop greens, and he fires it at her, and she dodges it, and he calls her a wretch. And then because of the arrow, she's able to, like, dodge around it, and then she, like, knees Usopp in the face. Type of a thing, which is, again, not fun. And we cut a bit of a distance away, and we see the ship. We see Brook falling off, or Jinbei falling off the ship, Brook falling off the ship, probably Usopp and Nami both falling off the ship, and then Colin is being, like, lifted up into the air by the arrow. And we have the communication is in, like, a Den Mushi communication that is going on, and it's like, well, Buzz, is everything ready? Killingham, and this is supposed to be Summers talking to Killingham, and we see, these Straw Hats and Colin are all, falling and everything, and I mean, they still have Zeus, so I think Zeus could still technically be able to catch them, because I think Nami can ride on Zeus, so the others should be able to ride on him as well. I don't know what damage Brook would sustain from falling from a great height. Maybe they'll land in the island clouds, I don't know. But they're falling, so hopefully we'll see what happens there in the next chapter if they get caught. And Colin is kind of being choked right now, which is not good. And the Den Mushi is still going on. It's like, so Elbaf does have a very limited communication network. That's true, but it seems there are strategic points in each village. So this is the Dengo Mushis, the different, the bigger Den Mushis that we've seen, that the dictation snails that they're able to use to communicate from village to village, or from, like, the school to the villages and stuff, and do, like, the big broadcasts. And we cut to the school, the Walrus School, where someone is shouting for Director Kiba, who is unfortunately being attacked right now by Killingham. And Killingham is at the school, and he's the one who's attacking all of the teachers. We're going to see Angie in a minute. And, like, Kiba has been knocked down. And Killingham is saying into the Den Mushi, I need something really hard and full of spikes. So I'm assuming I don't know if he just, like, picked up, if Killingham is just strong enough that he just, like, picked Kiba up by his beard and, like, whacked him down, because that looks like what he did, because, like, Kiba has, like, spikes on his shoulder pads. He's got, like, spikes there as, like, armor, and I think it's just Killingham just, like, picked up Kiba and then bam, whacked him on the ground, which is, like, a bit much. And people I think it's Angie that's screaming, Director, and Kiba's just, like, out cold now at this point in time. Like, one of his teeth is gone, one of his tusks is gone, knocked away. And a bit of a reference here, the difference between a Den Mushi and the Dengo Mushi is that the first one is just for transmission, so and while the second one seems to imply translations. So just little bits of the differences there with, like, the different types of Den Mushi that we have in the story. Like, there are the pond snails and Wano and stuff like that, and those are the varying kinds of what the Den Mushi can do, like the white Den Mushi and the black Den Mushi and, like, the horn Den Mushi, and different things like that, and the mini Den Mushis. And we see that the school has been very badly beat up, and Killingham is now standing. Hold on. Got my chillin'. Killingham is now standing in front of the Dengo Mushi, the dictation snail, and Angie's in the background, and she's like, my body won't move. And he's like, I just put your body into sleep mode, She's not a phone. That's in your hand. And Kiringham has the Den Mushi in his hand, and he's getting ready to like hold it up to the dictation Den Mushi, the Dengo Mushi, so that way it will then translate this and send it all over all over Elbath. And he's just like, this big guy here, right? Never heard of a Dengo Mushi before. Summers, I'm saying something through the Den Mushi. Try saying something through the Den Mushi. Pretty sure everyone in Elbath will hear you. And he's like, got it. So he's calling over the Den Mushi. And we cut to the final double page spread of the chapters. We got 2 good double page spreads in this, at least. And this final one is Summers versus Saul is what's going on here. Oh boy. And Summers has just made like all of these thorny vines and stuff like that show up around Saul, and he's got like this giant thorny mace that he is using, the club and everything, that's just like a Kanabo but worse. Using it probably hockeyed up, and has been using it to like attack Saul, so he can't go after the children, because Saul was going to go after the children and start like trying to tie them up so they can't keep walking. Good plan, but unfortunately that's not happening at the moment because Summers. And he's like, sorry, hold on, Kiringham, I'm almost done with this one. And he's like, that ex-Marine Vice Admiral was supposed to have died in O'Hara. So this is, of course, referencing to the fact that for the past 22 years, the Marines and the government have been under the impression that Saul was dead. How the heck Summers, well, okay, it involved O'Hara, and so maybe Summers knows about the incident at O'Hara, maybe. And Saul is just like, he is bleeding and so bloody and bruised and beaten and everything. Just blood everywhere. And he's like whispering, and like Robin and Chopper are still in his beard, because that's where they've been hanging out this whole time. And he's like, Robin, Chopper, don't come out. Hide behind my hair. So, like Robin is like having to cover her mouth to prevent herself from like screaming out, because like for her, this is probably bringing up a lot of post-traumatic stress flashbacks right now with everything that happened on O'Hara, and Summers just said O'Hara, and all this stuff, and mentioning that Saul was supposed to have died there and everything. And like for the past 22 years, all the way up to like, a week ago or whatever on Egghead, Robin had been fully under the impression that Saul was dead. And then she's like, okay, no, he's not dead. Vegapunk said he's not dead. And then it's just like, I'm going to get to see Saul. And then she did get to see Saul. And now Saul might die again. And she's just probably going through a lot of post-traumatic flashbacks right now. And Saul's like, I'm leaving the kids in your care. Please. And then he says much louder, come at me full force. And Summers is kind of like, okay, that's what you want. And he's like, timber. And then like, I think he's just bringing all of these thorns, these viney thorn vines with thorns all over them, thorny vines, I'll get to the right verbiage, just all down on Saul, and just like crashing down on him. And like Robin and Chopper are just like we see Robin, and she's just like, no, like she doesn't want this, because she just got reunited with Saul. She doesn't want Saul to die again, essentially, in her mind, because that's what she's thought he was dead for the last 22 years. And such, and so like she finally got him back. She finally got this connection back to her past, and now it might be being taken away from her again by this. And by a technicality, Robin would probably be the worst frickin' matchup against Summers, because her limbs sustain damage. Whenever her limbs sustain damage, she then sustains damage as well. Whenever she activates her devil fruit, she sustains damage. We saw this during the battle with Black Maria and everything. With what was going on there when she fought Black Maria, that Black Maria would cut the different manifested arms and everything, and once they took enough damage, they disappeared. But Robin took that damage as well. That's why Robin has to like brace herself whenever she uses her powers beyond, just like making a couple of hands or something appear to like tease Chopper, or like entertain Luffy and Usopp and stuff like that. she has to like brace herself whenever she's going to be fighting. That's why she goes into that stance there. And so, and like Summer's abilities are thorns, and the ability to like wrap someone in thorns would be very devastating to Robin's fighting ability, because of like if she made any of her giant hands pop up, he would just make thorns start attacking them, and then that would just cause so much damage to Robin herself. Unless she's able to, unless she's managed to like level up her Fleur de Monio, and if it is covered in hockey or something, then her being able to do that might be able to do some resistance against the thorns. But again, that's a little bit left up for debate. So the last person to talk in this chapter is Summers, and he is saying, school, library, cut the peace and learning crap. You're warriors. There was a time when giants shook the world with sheer brute strength. You'll become our mercenary soldiers. Isn't that right, King Harald? Harald, that bastard. He really screwed it up this time. And then, like, the editor's note is like, wasn't King Harald supposed to be like a resplendent ruler? Wasn't he supposed to be like an amazing ruler? And a lot of people in the community have been trying to determine whether or not they think Harald is a good guy or a bad guy type of a thing, whether or not he's a good king or a bad king, or he's a bad king who's pretending to be a good king, or some variation of that, and how much of this Loki knows and Jarl knows, and different things like that, for like him setting up the school and the library and different things like that, and like having all of that there. Or at least allowing Saul to improve on that. I have to imagine that the Walrus School had to have like some type of a predecessor to at least teach the giants how to like read and write and stuff like that as well. Because like Dory and Bragi could read and write, and they'd been on Little Garden for 100 years. So it would have made sense that there would have been at least some type of rudimentary school going on to like teach the giants and stuff like that. But like Harald very much kicked that into high gear with the Walrus School, and then with the Owl Library, with very much opening a lot of that up, and then having Saul there. So there's the question of, was Harald a bad king in the fact that he was trying to make it that, if I make it that we're not going to train the warriors anymore, that it's considered bad form to become a warrior or something like that, or we're going to try to transition into being more peaceful and more scholarly than warriors. If I start that process, then, this next generation of giants, or the next couple of generations of giants type of a thing, like, because Colin's like 20 years old, and, he wouldn't even been born when, like, Saul first showed up at O'Hara and everything. But he would have been, this group might be one of the main first groups that gets to go to the Walrus School. And again, we don't know how old all of the students are. They might be around the same age as Colin, maybe a little bit younger or a tad older, depending on stuff, because giants age weirdly. It's just weird. We've seen that with like Hybridine and the flashbacks and stuff like that they just age strangely, for like, because like Hybridine's like 18 years older than Loki, but when they're kids, Loki seemed to catch up with him in size very quickly, even though like Hybridine should have been like at least a bit, maybe not bigger, but at least look a bit older than Loki at that point in time. So it's just weird. But like, was Harald just going through and like trying to forcibly make them into like peaceful giants, so that way they would be less of a threat to the world government? Or, and the side of that would be the part that would go along with that is like if he started to transition them into being peaceful, less warrior-like, and that type of thing, would it have made the world government leave them alone? Would that have been what happened? Could that have been Harald's plan? And then like Loki found out about that type of a thing, Loki and Jarl found out about that, and then it's just like, okay, if we want to cement this as his legacy, then I then have to, kill my father, or whatever the case ended up being. Like maybe the world government found out what was going on, that Harald was trying to turn them into, peaceful giants, so that way then they would, the world government would see them as less of a threat, but the world government doesn't want the giants as a threat. They want them on their side. They want them as their own warriors. Because if you look at the Marines, any giant is basically just given the position of vice admiral. We saw that with like John Giant and with Saul. Not that Saul doesn't know how to fight, not that John Giant probably doesn't know how to fight, but there's a bunch of other the Giant Squad and stuff like that we see at Marine Corps that are just pretty much all given the right of being, you're all just vice admirals, okay? You got that? You're all vice admirals. Can y'all use hockey? Okay, good. That's all that matters. You're vice admirals now. Also, just freaking giant, so they're just really hard to deal with anyway. But so there's like that whole setup there. But like maybe it was Harald's intention to have it be that, if the giants start to transition into being peaceful, maybe that's why because like that was something being talked about like 60 years ago. 63 years ago type of a thing with like, maybe he wanted to try to start that transition when Mother Carmel first showed up over 100 years ago. And there's the whole theory that like Mother Carmel and him, because she's the mountain witch, the child trafficker, that, her and Harald, like she influenced him to start to make him want to work for the world government. But help make him like an ally of the world government type of thing to slowly start weakening Elbath from the inside. And technically that does seem to be what happened, but maybe it was Harald's intention to try to do it where he starts to shift Elbath into being more peaceful. And the fact that like for that time frame they didn't have Dory and Bragi on the island during that time frame, the giant warrior pirates were not there. They were out, and then they were brought back. They were caught by the world government and tried and almost executed, blah 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 blah. What happened with Mother Carmel and why she was allowed on the island. That was 100 years ago, 102 years ago range. Hi, I love you. She being cute. Here, I scoot over. See the cute puppy. I'm almost done recording, silly boo. Yabos, you're such a good girl. Beep. But maybe it was something where like Harald's intention was to try to make Elbath seem like less of a threat to the world government if he started to transition them into being peaceful. That then the world government would be like, these giants are useless to us. We can't make them fight for us anymore. They're all just flower children. This is useless to us. They're just flower children at this point in time. Sit over there making flower crowns and braiding each other's hair. To be fair, the giants probably braid each other's hair anyway. We see a lot of the giants walking around with braids. Why are you snorting at me? Don't you growl. You are a Brenda, not a growl. Beep. And like maybe that was his intention. And then like the way that the way that it's phrased here by Summers is like, Harald, that bastard, he really screwed it all up this time. We'll have to see how the actual official translation ends up being. That'll be out on like Sunday. We don't know exactly how that'll be phrased, but it is the setup where it's just like they were supposed to become the missionaries. No, they're not the missionaries. The mercenaries. Missionaries is a whole other thing. They were supposed to become the mercenaries for the world government and just be like their attack dogs. That seems to be like what they were wanting to do. But then because of Harald transitioning into them being more peaceful and scholarly type of a thing, and also as a side, offering this safe haven to Saul, who has all this information from O'Hara and all this information about the Void Century. There's kind of that tied in there as well, where like maybe he's like, okay, the world government destroyed O'Hara. They don't want this information getting out. Saul, this giant, outsider giant, has showed up on the island, possibly connected to his first wife, to Hybridine's mother, we don't know, that he brought all of this information from O'Hara, all of these books and everything from O'Hara, and he has this information. Maybe this is something that I can offer a safe haven to it, and if Elbath is seen as less of a threat to the world government, then that means that these books are now safer in that regard. Again, I don't know where they're going to land on whether or not Harald is going to end up being a good guy or a bad guy, and where Loki falls into this trope and plan and everything else like that. But, like, if Summers is very angry at Harald, then maybe that means Harald isn't bad, or at least not the way that we think he was bad, for the way of him, like, weakening Elbath. Maybe it was, his intention was to weaken Elbath, or at least make it appear weaker, so they would be less of a threat. Appear is less of a threat. It's like the same thing with, like, you know, with animals. It's just like, oh, if I appear as, like, less of a threat to something, it'll leave me alone, type of a thing. Or like the animals that have like poisonous colors, you know, bright colors, so other animals don't want to eat them. Or it's just like, you know, a dog will become very submissive if they're around a bigger dog or something like that, because they don't want to get hurt. They'll be much more submissive in that regard. You know, giving off that appearance type of a thing. So maybe that's something that Harald was thinking. That would be an interesting thing to explore there. Someone else will probably end up exploring it far better than I can. But maybe there's that. So that's what I have here. I thank you very much for watching. That ended up being longer than I wanted it to be. This coming weekend is Easter, so happy Easter to everybody who celebrates it. I don't remember if Passover is happening right now as well. If so, happy Passover, because I know that sometimes happens around the same time frame. And my birthday is next week, so yay! There won't be a video up on Monday, but because Tuesday is my birthday, it's also Earth Day, the review for Fern Gully, the last rainforest, will be up on that day because of Earth Day and my birthday and everything else like that. So that'll be up then. That's what we have. I thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!